Hello everyone, this is Alexandre from Gains. Today I'm joined by Stephen from Harmony. How are you doing, Stephen?
Doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me, and hello, everyone.
I'm very excited to speak with you. Like you are on the very edge of innovation, in my opinion, in crypto with crosschain, Uniswap, like sharding, Ethereum, solving many of the problems that on a daily basis are very annoying for people. First of all, can you quickly give us a brief introduction about yourself, what you did before crypto?
Oh, absolutely. Really, I do think the personal journey of many of the crypto projects, if not their founders, are really the thing that connect people together, so diverse of the background. I honestly came from a very academic research background that I did my PhD on system and programming language and security, went to Google for infrastructure engineering work, did my first startup, sold to Apple before I even discovered crypto. I think the interesting story has always been what would have been different if we take the ideas of many of the liberals all around the world on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and make it large scale for the world. And that's what many of my friends and quite a few folks coming out from Google and Apple ask, what can Silicon Valley do that the global already started? To us at that time, finally, we stumbled on the problem of scalability, which became very interesting for us, and that's the start. So I managed a group of a few entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and all of us discussing about all this hype and craze back in 2017. Even though we read the white paper, become quite many years ago, but then very few of us take it seriously, jumping on this crypto. Honestly, 2017, no one felt it was reputable for a Silicon Valley team to jump on it. I was very lucky to fundraise and really start a Harmony.
All right, and so what's Harmony?
To us, Harmony is more than just a scalability project. Many know the challenges of where it takes blockchain, if not Ethereum, to the next stage. But to us, it's really about scaling trust. We already know that big companies can solve many problems for tens, if not 100 millions of people. But we still don't trust the big corporation. To us, it really comes back to why Bitcoin Ethereum started, to ask, can we scale trust? Obviously, we stole that slogan of scaling trust even from Ethereum because we really believe in that mission. But we take it a little bit differently. Harmony is really thinking about the infrastructure. Can we really take some of the best protection to best research to protection so that whether Ethereum or the next blockchain or integrating with different fiats in different countries on a massive scale. So I would say Harmony are thinking really solving problem beyond crypto, beyond the trading, beyond just on-chain problem. So we call it the scaling trusts among lots of billions of people, and thinking about creating fair economy in different parts of the world.
Well, that's a very grand vision, and I'm very excited to hear you tell us about it. You're talking about scalability, which is a very pressing issue these days. How are you tackling this compared to Ethereum, for example?
Very great question. So obviously what happened 2 years ago, if not just last year, feel completely different today, right? We started 2 years ago still knowing what Ethereum 2 has to accomplish, sharding, proof of stake. So very early on, we took the sharding approach and really prototyped a testnet, even within a few months when the project started. And then last year, we have been designing the token economics, as well as this year, finally, not just having the staking, but having the open staking. What that means, anyone can come on it and actually start like earning the block reward, but also like having all this slashing as well as checking the availability that we have solved. Ethereum has spent quite some years thinking about what would be a BTC relay bridges to BTC, and surprisingly, this year finally have great traction. wBTC, tBTC just launched, which we really think this is the big trend now, Bitcoin to Ethereum, lending and be part of this DeFi. But then the next one still just starting, cross-chain, layer 2. How to have trustless bridges for all these blockchain to talk to each other? Really, the vision of Cosmo and Polkadot couldn't come early. It's also something that Harmony is experimenting as well.
Just something that I would like to highlight is the transaction fees on Harmony are like a millionth of a dollar. It's basically free. While on Ethereum these days, the fees sometimes they are several dollars and sometimes even in the tens of dollars. Obviously, this would be great if we could all switch to a protocol with near zero fees. How are you doing such low fees? how are you going to foster adoption on the network? Because as great as a tech can be, sometimes the best tech doesn't win.
These are really some of the best questions, if not the existential questions of anything other than Ethereum they have to think about, right? People actually know how to advertise for zero gas fees even a few years ago. If you remember, even the top 50 blockchain, everyone talked about low fees and zero costs, but they didn't have the architecture to design for it. The right economics. People talk about economic security of Ethereum. It's solid. People even put Bitcoin onto it. People put all kind of high value asset onto like real money there, right? Whether USDT and what's not. The key point is not about being low costs or zero fees. Is do you have an architecture that can scale when there are high volume of transactions while the miners and the validators are still earning enough to support this network rather than just forking away and taking the asset away. So to advertise just zero cost fees without the underlying economics is actually really bad. That's just wrong advertisement. There's a reason. It is a paradox if people don't study it. Why Ethereum people need to pay $500 and some blockchain is zero. But I probably won't unpack everything today. There's a really big part about why we designed to be sharding. So there's actually called horizontal expandability, meaning if you have more transaction, you can just have more shards. And then the second part, why is the token economics, the inflation compared to Bitcoin deflation, and Ethereum still trying to figure out the issuance rate. We actually spend lots of time on it. We call it the effective proof of stake. Probably will be too big a topic to unpack today. Can just take us a few sessions. Because I want to answer you the second question, which are more pressing. Can anyone come use us now that we have a mainnet? Everyone has already designed fees, if not many of have like very similar token economics now, but no one has figured out the adoption of Ethereum yet.
You have the scaling, you have the low fees, you have the fast block times. You want to connect all the blockchains to...
Yeah, why wouldn't everyone just use it now, right? Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is very simple. The inertia, if not the ecosystem of Ethereum, is real. And there's really no reason to. People would rather capture new values rather than trying to optimize the fees. If I can yield farm for thousands of dollars, 100x like over a week, why would I even switch my infrastructure? But finally, you saw Synthetic and Uniswap switching to Optimism. That's finally happened. So some of these chains like Harmony, if not Avalanche, also have like good perspective, like what does it take to fork them to come, right? And Cosmo obviously have finally some DeFi project to like boost a new ecosystem. So Harmony take a different approach. We take the Ethereum compatible approach very seriously, because we know that these are the ecosystem that developers have started. We have grants, we have millions of grants to really just attract developers. But I can tell you, these are just a starting point and it's not enough. So finally, the last few weeks, we have shown that even the top DeFi project can run on Harmony great. The team spent some time having fun, playing with a demo that actually works and it just can deploy to our mainnet. That's really very few projects are able to do. People talk about similar concept. But can you actually have, we call it the one-click migration, right? Can it really help developer that way? But to me, the next narrative must come before we can actually even explore different area that Ethereum couldn't tackle now. We know many of the NFT are being pushed out to non-Ethereum chains now. We also know that high-frequency trading, just no way, theoretically not possible on Ethereum, right? But Optimism is already started. Our approach is layer 2, like Optimism and Starware's approach, will become very similar to a new base protocol once there are a trustless bridge, and we call it the light client as well, that can solve the problem. So we have a different ecosystem of validator and economics and community and tokens. The key part is, can we really seamlessly connect to Ethereum and Bitcoin, obviously.
I'm also quite excited to see if there can be DeFi on Bitcoin, because we don't really hear about the community behind Bitcoin, while the community behind Ethereum and all the projects on Ethereum seems to be so big. Maybe because there were like many ICOs on Ethereum. But I think connecting the two of these blockchains and others could be like an explosive result.
I would say so. Yeah, I would say what you said, you don't see it happening. It's mostly coming from the Bitcoin development, right, or changes, or from the core, what they want to discuss. But then there are holders of BTC, which is what I mentioned. BTC lending is actually huge now. So the two projects, wBTC and renBTC as well, by the way. But we are most excited about the tBTC, KIPS network, tBTC. So these three projects already exceeded $1 billion lockup value. That actually show the use case, if not like it is happening. It's actually happening, right? I think just beginning of the year, it must be less than 50 million in total. That it was just BitGo and wBTC that happened. tBTC show that it doesn't need to be just like trusted custodial the way that USDT is doing it, but a network of validator can also help people to have the trust using lots of similar custodial and stakes setting that really can bring BTC with logs and smart contract to be in the whole device space. And that's what Harmony is very excited about. Like many of the economics as well as network setup will be actually very similar, that Harmony want to play a role as having the trustless bridge to BTC as well.
Right, so potentially Harmony could unlock DeFi applications for Bitcoin holders and like have them like get in on these lending 10%, 15% a year returns or whatever.
Yeah, I must clarify, like wBTC and renBTC as well as tBTC already started that. But the thing is, there are very few trustless and permissionless, by the way. wBTC, just like USDT, are like a very good custodial and people trust it with hundreds of millions of dollars. But what tBTC have shown, and Harmony want to really be part of the like trustless ecosystem, is can a large group of validators, and openly, by the way, as well. You can't just like say, can I be the Libra member, right? Just 100 of them. Or like same thing with wBTC, the bar is really high. But we think that finally technology as well as there are strong proof of concept that just launched last week, tBTC, that it can really happen. So why wBTC work and renBTC, by the way, but now completely different, I would say, tBTC is the following. wBTC actually work. It's actually not a technical problem. USDT is not about technical. It's really the brand and the custodial, if not the US regulations and the auditor that help people trust that you can just like put it there, lock it up, and then you have like Ethereum equivalent of USDT to spend anywhere, right? So same thing for the wBTC. They have done that with BitGo and really great consortium to show the trusted community. They couldn't do it in an open way, meaning there were probably about 6, if I remember correctly, maybe 15, to help this custodial in a trusted way, trust the custodial, and that's the difference. I'll skip renBTC, which is also a great project, to go all the way to tBTC. Now tBTC KIPS network said, no, why don't we just have like tens, if not even 100 of custodial, permissionlessly, trustlessly, help BTC holders to lend out the protocol with some kind of logs on the chain, by the way, to do that. And Harmony take the same approach. And we take it even further. They call it the light clients. If you remember, Bitcoin SPV is a similar concept. Why don't Harmony validate the nodes, hold all these light clients, SPV, of like Litecoin, BTC, to do the validators and stakings and governance and slashing and bonds, just the same. They need all the same technical set of like multi-signature, if not even randomness function, that Harmony actually have built for more than a year now. So that's our angle.
So that's something I'd like to talk about, which is the Uniswap crosschain that you're developing. Regarding adoption, most people will be aware that people who use Uniswap received one of the biggest airdrop ever in the crypto history. And so maybe just saying, I mean, I don't know what you have in mind or your plans, but if you start to use Harmony now, and in the future you have an airdrop for a cross-chain Uniswap, that might be something valuable. I don't know.
I think you brought up the best topic. If not, something has been on my mind for the last few weeks. I finally come up with the roadmap for the Q4 and the 2021 for Harmony, because knowing where the industry is going is extremely difficult. Crypto changes so fast, so many different sub-communities. It's one thing to fork Uniswap as a, like whether Swap or the 10 others on Ethereum, but to talk about cross-chain Uniswap, it's really the state of the art, if not the topic of the time, that many of the like both community and top chains are doing. It's also our angle too, not because it's hard, but because of the utility. What DEX couldn't have really come to the adoption for many years, Uniswap really solved it, proved it this year. But then there's still lots of, like you really cannot put your USDT swapping without the wrap anyway. And there's still, I would say, still tens of valuable chains asset that are not Ethereum native, right? They have their own native token, they have their own asset. How can we actually have a Uniswap that connect BTC, for sure Ethereum asset, but also let's say Binance Smart Chain, Cosmo, if not Polkadot coming? I think it's a great problem to solve.
How far or close are you to solving this problem?
Great question. We are literally just starting, honestly, but I want to get the feedback on this, right? And many projects are really starting at this time. We actually have some prototype, we have bridges, we have light clients that we are under work, we have great research, and we want to come up with a white paper just on that key concept of cross-chain transaction, cross-chain composability. But we are very excited working with researchers on this front, but also really helping some of the Ethereum developers to just fork and play with the DeFi on our chain. But the bridge part is really state of the art that we are under development right now.
You do cross-chain, you want to do cross-chain, but going back to the vision you mentioned at the beginning, you also are really pushing cross-border integrations. Blockchain should be global. It's decentralized. There shouldn't be any bias. How are you doing this? Why is it needed? What are the issues right now when people in different countries want to exchange data or value?
So setting up the goal of our project for our mission to talk about 10 billion people, of course, was possible to talk about in 2018, right? Everyone had a big dream. I want to bring a team of Silicon Valley top engineers to come together to work on a big problem, and that's what Silicon Valley is known for. But it gets very challenging. The last 2 years, whether crypto winters or just the adoption by government and regulation, and just wind changes all the time. But finally, we see that this year there are better roadmap to think about that problem. How do we tackle problem outside crypto using the blockchain technology? How can businesses, if not even investors outside of crypto and blockchain, would know how to use certain product beyond the UX problem anyway? To us, it's actually two key problems. One is integrations, one is called liquidity. So actually both people understand very well, but people actually don't really have, I would say, the tools to tackle them. I would say even until this year. People talk about liquidity mining really just starting a few months ago, right? But it's actually a very prevalent problem to solve on Wall Street in real world problem with all the even remittance, whether Western Union or Ripple way to think about it. The concept of on-demand liquidity is actually now very well understood now, right? Sure, it's just a Uniswap liquidity pool, right? But it's actually also true among different businesses, both in terms of their financial needs as well as their business need. Let me unpack this because I felt like this is the part that I want to get the most feedback and really want to tell this world story, how to think about just forking and just earning yearn, because the same opportunity actually exists outside crypto and everywhere in the world. For most businesses, once they get global anyway, they have some pools here and some pools there of their cash flow. If it is truly global business, how do you convert all the currency and then think about how to have do payroll for a certain country compared to you have the inventory from your merchandise sales in some other platform? It's an impossible problem. I mean, you need a CFO for Apple to solve that tax and cash efficiency problem. It's actually, I think, is really the chance of crypto to think about a brand new financial infrastructure that take the Wall Street investment banking mentality and solving just even OTC and what's not for just only the Fortune 500 companies for all the global businesses now.
All right, so really making money flow all over the world much more easily.
That's exactly what Uniswap, if not all this liquidity mining is all about, right? If you think about it, even for cross-exchange arbitrage of all these assets, I'm talking about cryptocurrency now, all these traders, all these actually project owners as well. Project owners need to put different tokens and fiat onto a different exchange and really try to maintain it. Right? It's the same problem that Uniswap, now people understand it, is solving, which is the same thing if I may extrapolate and based on what I can see, what business owners have to deal with. So the whole concept of like liquidity pools, on demand, arbitrage, incentives, as well as bots that help you do that, to me, is the same problem.
Are you thinking about some kind of decentralized pools for businesses?
I would say so. So there are obviously the infrastructure, right? Can you even connect with the exchanges? Let's say start with crypto asset first. When you arbitrage, do you have the infrastructure in integration and bots that can actually work across exchanges? Seems like a no-brainer. Guess what? These are some of the key problems our partner, like Hummingbot, is trying to solve, which is huge, very difficult, very expensive. People pay market maker like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what you said, the last part is also true. Business owners actually need to put a cash reserve in certain platform and certain banks and certain country and certain accounts for no good reason, earning zero fees, right? Again, is what Uniswap has solved, right? Put it there, the liquidity pool. If you integrate them together, people will actually help you. You can say arbitrage or like incentivizing or helping you optimize. It's the same.
Potentially, these businesses wouldn't need so much cash flow in different banks, and they would need to be so stretched out, and that could be good for commerce. So putting more money to work, I guess.
Well, that's exactly what crypto has even proven itself this summer.
You were speaking about trends a bit earlier, and there's in the past weeks a new trend has emerged after all the DeFi, the Polkadot craze. No, it's NFTs. Not sure why, but you have token standards on Harmony, right? Like HRC20, just like the ERC20 on Ethereum. Are you working on NFTs as well?
I do think that both trading liquidity and NFT are the early adopters of blockchain. People know it already, right? It's just that whether people are crazy about airdrops or incentives or yields compared to NFT, which you can also play with and own and show your identity. This form of entertainment and ownership is always going to be true. Some people actually trade to belong in a community, whether just to get on a small exchange that they have their influence or their group thinking or perspective or strategy. It's actually very similar to what NFT is doing, right? Whether I create in this partner sandbox and Mocha, or like I'll just create my own art, right? Crypto voxel, just create one-man team, right? To us, we have the same perspectives. Right? We are going to be a platform. We work with partners and very closely with Mocha to think about like how to have a faster and cheaper blockchain. But then the bigger perspective, how do we enable community? How can we put the traditional games or online games, but we think more like a branded asset as well. We know critical is hard, but then what the Apps Lab doing with NBA, for us, we're doing with our partner Quid, that think about like Hello Kitties and what's not, we call them the branded assets. So not only the technology we have it, I think this is going to be a big angle to think about mainstream. My moms already know, let's say Game of Thrones. Can I start trading them, or like at least have a marketplace? If not, like have the apps to be showing it on through blockchain. To us, is still a very, very big open space.
You're gonna have an HRC 721 standard for NFT on Harmony, and you were just talking about the issue is where can you exchange them? Will there be also an exchange that will support those?
We already have that standard. We already ported it. We already showcased a few NFT demo and marketplace. The question is, can we interoperable with Ethereum? Having a silo fork, I think, has been very amazing this year that many chains are able to show. Having that cross-chain element is the hardest part. But OpenSea have already established how, in some way, this innovation should happen on its own, right? Permissionless, not just within the chain, but even across chain. So to answer your question, to us, it's not so much about how hard, sometimes it's not even how hard it is to move around. OTC solved that problem for human money, right? The challenge is, where are the demands? Are there values? To us, we strongly believe in it, but we do think that it can come from even bigger of the branded, like mainstream brands.
And of course, connecting to Ethereum will bring these big names in. Is there anything else exciting that you'd like to share that you have on your roadmap, short or long term?
Yeah, we do think that the longer term, what Ethereum 2 experiment now and all the concept, But what Ethereum 3, I would call the Ethereum Foundation set out, the long-term goals, or what is still missing in Ethereum 2, right? It's really about better and more cryptographic primitives and actually oracles, meaning integrating with the real world. It's still what Harmony still believe. Again, quite long term, but I really want us to think about why blockchain is different. To us, we keep reminding ourselves every day. If we still couldn't solve all this front-running privacy, integrating with fiat business that actually have some way to do audit without thinking about like all the data is on the open, there's still very, very big problem to be solved there. Same thing with oracles. Finally, we have one fee for BTC per chain, but like how to have this, all this in the traditional Wall Street term is called the market microstructures. So these are some of the things that I put in the roadmap, but only people need to understand it. I have a product survey on Ethereum 3, but it's really so much to catch up, even the development on Ethereum 2, but for sure Ethereum Foundation. To us, we love to tell you guys more about the immediate roadmap of cross-chain bridges, like clients and stable coins that actually work with fiat gateways. But we always keep in mind that next year is going to be even more amazing because cryptographic primitives is really the magic.
For sure, connecting to the real world with oracles is a big issue. You were talking about still lingering issues in crypto, being it manipulated, many other issues in crypto, and that's kind of actually against the ethos of crypto that wanted to be transparent, fair, and this made me think about on your website, there's a very powerful sentence when you open it, is that you want to create a radically fair economy. Do you still think that's possible? Because I mean, crypto has been around for like more than 10 years now. It wanted to be fair against like position to the traditional financial system that the rich gets richer. But I think we kind of still have this issue in crypto with people who have the connections, the whales, they have an edge. Do you think we can build something really different with crypto or not?
I really wish we have another day just to talk about radical fairness or radical markets, if not even just more specifically about quadratic voting of quadratic power. So we definitely hanging on to what we think, not just about scaling trust or consensus. Those are very abstract for people, right? The economy is really what difference of blockchain from open source, which I've been part of for many years, right? For us, if we couldn't figure out the economic value, if not even thinking about the world's wealth, people's access to wealth would be a little bit different because of some new technology. We're really missing, asking why we're in this game. I definitely have a lot more to say about why the world is not radically fair now and what we can do, and why, even though people started with decentralization, centralization always happened, whales always have their say, and they have the resources too. And I do still believe that Ethereum community have lost a lot of more liberal, if not radical thinking on that front, to think about a marketplace or a market. They call it the radical market concept. We actually do know that the world has come to that only wars or revolution can disrupt not just government, but like rich. In some way, that's what blockchain has shown too.
Do you think crypto is like fighting a war, like a financial
It is.
war?
I mean, it's every day. You'll miss out if you just like take a weekend off. It is. How can a government in the real world solve this problem? There's none, I would say. Like they are long-term sustainable. If you don't think about a key concept called radical market. Again, I didn't come up with any of this concept, right? But I truly ascribe to them that think about both the mobility, they call it the hybridus tax, thinking about like it's not just about what you think you are worth and that you own and contribute to the common goods, but whatever that you prescribe to, people can take it away, and meaning you would say how much you are worth and people can take it away and do new development. If you think about it, it's very simple. Uniswap set on 3% fees, right? People don't like it, people change it. Okay, you have more governance structure that allow people to have self-governance that way. Second thing is also a key concept that I learned is the concept of quadratic voting, quadratic funding. Gitcoin done very well on that already, so I wouldn't expand it on that part today. sometimes all these concepts seem so academic. I wouldn't even talk about today about formal security and really thinking about like why is all the smart contract in this world broken today. What you said about front running, people actually know that amount of miners to extract values and reorder and even reorder the blocks to extract the advantage is happening. And there are really solutions and there are really engineering work to solve.
Would you like to quickly tell us who's on your team? Because you have a very impressive team. And secondly, what's the business model of Harmony right now? How are you making money? See, if like the transaction fees are so low, so that's what I'm wondering.
Thanks for propping us up for us to talk about ourselves, right? To think about what a veteran infrastructure, if not just like deep liberal thinking to this space, was why this team come together. We have like 2 Harvard Business School, 2 Stanford graduates, PhDs, as well as like Amazon, Google engineers coming to our team. I would like to call out their names, like my team will love that, but I think we know that Silicon Valley is really about coming with this vision, right? So my team take a different thinking, even though it has been the story that finally come together, that legitimate professor and researcher and people quit Google job to come to this. We were still the early one to think that this has to be true. Finally, there are incentives for us to quit the job to think about this experiment has to be executed out, even though it's extremely hard. People may not buy in a 4-year vesting. We strongly believe that. This is our team to think about, not just about having a prestigious school resume or like that I know how to do it at Google. Can you do it in a startup that competes with Ethereum? And now it's not about competing with Ethereum, but actually working with Ethereum and cooperating for a bigger ecosystem. It's a very grand thinking that many of us have open source experience, have experience building infrastructure for tens of millions of users to think about it. But you ask a harder question, revenue, right? Or even like sustainable business, which is also a hard question even for unicorns in Silicon Valley. We settled that a long time ago that for base protocol, it has to be about the transaction fees, the network fees that we're able to occur, right? Us being so low, transaction fees so sparse, underutilized network really put us in the paradox. But I do believe that there's still a strong value once you design your token economics, right? For the longest time, Ethereum has really no value. That base protocol must have the long-term view. I'm talking about decades, right? Unfortunately, we have to. TCP wouldn't imagine Google building it 40 years, 50 years ago. That we must design the token economics governance to be such a way that 5, maybe 10 years later, it becomes indispensable. Right? So we take it to heart that founders can only capture certain value, if not the project itself can capture certain value, but the ecosystem on top of it. And what the ecosystem on top of it, whether through grants or through being the most value experiment that we need to do, which is crosschain today, figuring out the right clients to be gas efficient, we must. Otherwise, we become irrelevant. That it doesn't matter whether we show the games or a game bowl on top of us for transactions. There's really no long-term value people can fork in if your community or governance or your technology doesn't live up to.
It sounds a bit like David versus Goliath. What many people in crypto think is that crypto companies fight against each other, and that's true to some extent. But actually, what you said is much more true, is that they're fighting against the traditional financial system and governments. When you think about a team of idealist liberals, very smart people fighting against the full power of governments that have existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and trying to build a new system, that's like, wow.
Well, revolution is fun, right? But these are young men's obsession in games. People shouldn't call themselves Ethereum killers anymore. People should build bridge and establish the trust, right? If we can even like connect and talk to and be part of the Ethereum ecosystem, what are the chances that we can work with like general audience, with banks and fiat gateway? To us, it's the same thing. Banks and governments, for sure, are not just waking up, right? They already rolling out products. Visa Direct, PayPal has great initiative, have a huge blockchain organization to make it happen. When we say, oh yeah, we are fighting banks and Wall Street and government, it is very great to pump up that passion. But it turns out that there are countries actually more ready to help integration, to help actually roll out the distribution. And we should see it as that way. Visa actually have experiment blockchain, like JP Morgan for sure, like for many, many years, that there are a lot to learn from each other.
Can you tell us about these countries that are more ready than others to adopt
Yeah,
blockchain?
I do think that some countries are more ready than the other, but some countries are already way ahead, but like you have no way to like play the game, right? Digital yuan for many years, that when we did many community and events and roadshow in China, that we learned about digital yuan rolling out, right? Right now it's everywhere. Belt and Road is really everywhere. And some countries like India, we went there with like many of the core team to really understand the ecosystem when people just thought that even Supreme Court wouldn't allow them. It just changed right after we finished our trip. Like 3 weeks right after the trip, the Supreme Court ruling got reverted. And we were part of the community still waiting for the Supreme Court ruling. It's just like really the moments of changes in the society. So powerful. For us, we spent time in Indonesia, in Vietnam, because we were very familiar with the Southeast Asia market. We just launched our Korea fiat pair because we still know that even though it has been trader heavy, some of the partnership, the government is very progressive in giving out grants in fintech. We do know that like Turkey as well as Argentina are great innovation for fintech, but our key market is still US to India, right? By extension of Korea as well as Vietnam. But for a small team, we really need to understand where the fintech is happening.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about Harmony, what you've been doing, any subject we missed maybe?
For us, Harmony, we set out to be a long journey, but it has been tough. I've done one startup before, and I couldn't imagine this could be so crazy. So crazy in the sense that there are these amazing invincible somewhere, that's what we call it, invincible. Everyone felt like they are top of the game, earning bucks, and so many opportunities. And then there are crypto winters. I do believe that the part about scaling trust among people is still the fundamental reason why we're in this game, right? Whether our own team or the community. And honestly, it gets very hard. Like the narrative changes all the time. You must stay relevant. And for a base protocol, it gets really harder to tell that narrative as years pass by. But we must, because we believe that.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. I would have one last personal question.
Sure.
Do you have time to read? And if so, are there any books you'd like to recommend?
I absolutely think I should find more time reading rather than like Twitter.
Or maybe, like a TV show or documentary or something.
I do. But finally, I really get time to, because it's one thing to be being a technical person, but actually the human aspect is still fascinating beyond my imagination. To be a better writer, if not a speech maker, that I find the book Sapiens and Andreessen, What You Do is Who You Are, the most impactful for me this year. The Sapiens really talk about the world, right? And it has been a favorite book for many people, even on Bill Gates' lists, but I didn't read it until now. It really gave me the world's view to, if not reconfirm, but also give me a lot more points to help me understand that we are so tiny in the bubble of Silicon Valley and crypto, but to understand what is the bigger world's view that I can ascribe to. Then that's hopefully my 50-year dream to be part of, right? Stay alive. What will happen in when we are all 150 years and looking back the change that humans have achieved. And then what I need to do day to day is what I was very impressed by, the Andreessen book called What You Do is Who You Are. It talks about business culture. It is really about what you do day to day that defines many of these cultural revolution in many of the countries as well as tribes that actually is very relevant to running a team, especially in the crypto space. The change is so abrupt. The technology can really become irrelevant in a few months. And there are new narratives coming out. How can humans respond to it? Having the empathy for the people and the users that we serve, if not even having the empathy for our community and among the teammates, I want to spend more time thinking about it. How to scale trust even among our community should be really is the top thing that on my mind.
Thank you for sharing, and I would say it's been amazing to see your passion and both your long-term vision, right? The idealist part of you combined with what you just talked about on a daily basis, doing the work to get things done and still having a practical side to things, because that's how you make progress.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I hope we'll be having another chat maybe in 3 months or so. When
it was lovely. Thanks for asking all the great
that's-
questions so that I have a chance to even reflect on them.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Have a great one.